All right, it's been a little while since I've made a video, so I figured as we approach the year's end, I would share some of my takeaways from 2021 as it relates to my experience working with companies trying to navigate through their workplace decisions and share some overall observations on the market, trends, and the general sentiment towards returning to the office. But before I do so, I want to acknowledge that 2021 continued to be a challenging and frustrating year for many. Here we are almost 2 years into the pandemic and COVID cases continue to surge, adding more stress and more uncertainty to an already overwhelmingly challenging period. But that said, 2021 was a promising year in many ways as well. Vaccinations have proven to be a vital safeguard to prevent severe illness, and we've shown that we can return to a relative sense of normalcy when we take a thoughtful, safe, and adaptive approach as a society. So here we go. My first takeaway is there is major inconsistency in terms of how companies are navigating through the pandemic and planning for occupancy, regardless of industry sector. If you examine two seemingly comparable companies within the same industry, their approach to the workplace could be drastically different from one another. But what I've learned is that it all comes down to leadership. Leaders must have a good pulse on the culture of their company and a deep understanding of what is required to be competitive, successful, and productive, and whether or not that can be done at home, in the office, or some combination of the two. So once leaders determine what each position within their organization requires to be effective and what resources are necessary for each position to be effective, then they can determine a workplace solution that is customized to them that could very well be drastically different from their peers. My second takeaway, and this may sound somewhat self-serving, but for me, there's no replacement to collaborating in person. Yes, it can be done virtually. And yes, not every organization needs to collaborate on a daily or even weekly basis. But for those that do, and me being one of them, there's no comparison to being in person with my team to brainstorm and all the wisdom that you get at the quote unquote proverbial water cooler. Our office has been open since June. And on my floor, I've got construction professionals and workplace strategists and research professionals all next to me. And how much wisdom I absorb from them on a daily basis just simply cannot be replicated by picking up the phone or organizing a Zoom call. It just, for me and many other clients of mine, being in the office when done safely and thoughtfully just doesn't compare. My third takeaway is there's still lots of transactions being done, which is a result of the incredibly favorable market conditions for tenants right now. So concessions, meaning free rent, tenant improvement dollars, and even lease buyouts were at an all-time high in 2021. In fact, Washington, D.C. had the highest concessions for tenants than any other major market in the country. So even if you're in a long-term lease, there could be several creative ways to reduce your costs and improve your situation. So I encourage you to examine your situation with an advisor and figure out if there's an opportunity to improve your situation, regardless of where you may be in your lease term. My fourth takeaway is flexibility is everything, not just in terms of how office space is designed, but how leases are structured as well. And I think we can all agree that long gone are the days of working at one desk in one office, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. People are realizing that the prime purpose of office space is to collaborate and be the catalyst where intellectual capital can flourish. And there are lots of ways to incorporate flexibility into design your office that are really not necessarily super capital intensive. And in terms of structuring flexibility into the leases, many landlords are recognizing that some tenants are hesitant to make long-term commitments or any commitments at all. So they've been more amenable to flexible options like contraction options, termination options, expansion options, renewal options, et cetera, so they can structure a transaction that aligns with your business and provides you with the comfort necessary to make a decision, whether that means to stay or relocate. My fifth takeaway is if you're planning on relocating or undergoing a modification to your space, plan for it early. Construction costs are on the rise as material prices have increased and supply chain remains bottled up, so get ahead of the curve. And in many instances, you may have to add several months to your construction timeline, and be sure that your budget accurately reflects the current conditions, which could change on a week-to-week basis. So have a project manager on your team to help guide you through that process, which can be very helpful. And my last takeaway, and my wife reminds me of this almost every day, is the importance of communication. I can't stress enough how important it is to routinely keep staff apprised of your company's plan, of their workplace policy plan, in order to ease their anxieties. Nothing is more unsettling than uncertainty. So taking the time to work with a workplace professional to determine the best short and long-term policy, but then communicating that policy to staff is critical. Here we are at the end of the year, and many companies were planning on coming back to the office in January in some way, and that very well could change because of the rise in COVID. So explaining to your employees of why changes are taking place and when changes are taking place and getting ahead of that really goes a long way. So that's it. Thank you. Those were my takeaways for 2021. I remain optimistic for next year. Happy holidays to everybody. Happy New Year, and see you in 2022. Thanks.